Hello and welcome to Sketchplanations, the podcast, aiming to spread curiosity and contemplation about how the world works based on the huge collection of explanatory sketches found at sketchplanations.com. I'm engineer and broadcaster Rob Bell, and with me is designer and creator of Sketchplanations, Jono Hey, and also on the podcast this week, according to the British newspaper The Telegraph, we have probably the UK's greatest living statistician, David Spiegelhalter. Jono, David, hello.
Hello.
David, thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great. It's lovely. I love the book. I love the sketches. So I'm really pleased to be part of this.
And I hope you don't mind me using that quote from the Telegraph.
Wow, what a joke.
It reminded me of the Carlsberg ad. So probably
the greatest statistician in the world.
But David, if you don't mind, I'd like to give our listeners a quick rundown of your work so everybody knows who we're dealing with. You are Emeritus Professor of Statistics at the Statistics Laboratory, University of Cambridge. Have held a number of influential positions in your career around data and statistics, working tirelessly on ways to improve how statistical evidence is used by, amongst others, health professionals, patients, lawyers, judges, policymakers. You're an award-winning documentary maker, best-selling author, and in 2014 you were knighted for services to medical statistics.
Yep.
And there are so many fascinating things that we'd love to talk to you about. And we're going to get into how in your career you've dissected data in order to understand risks and assess the chances of what might happen in the future.
Yeah.
But before all of that, what was it like doing the obstacle course on the TV show Wipeout?
Oh, it was wonderful. It is, one of my life's great achievements. Going out to Argentina for the weekend and with a lovely group of 20 people. The winner would come back with 10,000 quid. Everyone else came back with all their broken bones, etc.
Well, yeah, it's brutal.
It is brutal, but you're so padded up. I don't know how they tested it, but you're so padded up that you can actually get whacked by something and fly through the air in a somersault, land in the water, and you just come up smiling, possibly. and I did really well, but I took it very seriously, Wipeout. I was a big fan. I watched all the episodes.
Yeah.
And then when I got on, which my daughter persuaded me to get on it, and that's another story how I got on it. And but then I realized that I did statistical analysis of all the times, which were on Wikipedia. And amazing. I realized that in order to get through the qualifier, I really had to get through in about 3 minutes. And so I trained in 3-minute bursts. That's all I want to do. If it's longer than that, you just end up sobbing in the mud or something. And I did not, that's all I didn't want to be one of those. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So even using statistics.
Oh, yeah, I did. No, I did regression analysis of the times that the 12th person, the one who just qualified, did over time. And it settled down after a few series to about 3 minutes. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, as I mentioned, David, there are so many things that we'd love to delve into with you. And to begin with, there are 2 sketches that John has created based on concepts that you've talked about. And in fact, one that you've created yourself. So Micromorts and Microlives. Mm-hmm. So John, before we hear from David about these, do you want to say a bit about how you came across them and why they piqued your interests?
It's really quite straightforward. I came across them because I must have come across at least one of your very entertaining talks, which covered both of these concepts. And I remember they grabbed me straight away. And the sketches are very simple. This was quite early on in this whole project. So I'm really just describing what they are, which was a micromort has a 1 in a million chance of a sudden death during an activity, and a microlife 30 minutes of your life expectancy. I think I called them the unit of death and the unit of life, which I don't know if anybody else has ever called them that. But I think it grabbed me because everyone knows that some things are riskier than others. But how much riskier is sort of always been very vague, I suppose. And why I love both these measures is why it sort of started to be able to put some numbers to this, which I guess you've spent a lot of your time thinking about these kind of things. So I think it would probably make sense to start discussing micromorts. But maybe even before that, I think you distinguished when you discussed this kind of thing before, something called acute risks and chronic risks.
Yeah,
and maybe that's the right place to start.
Yeah, acute risks is skydiving and chronic risks is smoking cigarettes. In that one is going to kill you straight away and the other is going to influence your health and reduce your life expectancy. It means you're at risk of dying earlier. So it's really quite a simple one. And the Micromort, there was already a unit of acute risks developed by Ron Howard at Stanford in the 1970s. 1 in a million chance of sudden death. So I felt that we needed one for chronic risks as well.
I was quite taken with the idea of Micromorts. And I think in your most recent book, The Art of Uncertainty, you have a nice table with the average Micromorts from a number of different activities. I wonder, do you still remember some of these, or I can read some out?
Yeah, read them out.
Well, and they probably changed since when I first...
Yeah, they do change a bit. Things have got a bit safer, boringly safer. Yeah.
Micromort for my original sketch was 1 day of living, 20 miles by bike, about 250 miles in a car.
Yeah.
So hang on. So just to recap for that. So 20 miles by bike, or would you say 150 miles by car, you've got a 1 in a million chance of dying.
On average. Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. On average. It depends how you drive. I mean, but the point is, this is averaged over a lot of people over a lot of time. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So if you wanted to compare, as you do in your book, for example, you could travel 7,500 miles by train and you'd use up 1 Micromort. Or you can travel 7,500 miles in a car, and that would actually use 25 Micromorts. And on a motorcycle, 7,500 miles is 1,000 Micromorts as a comparison of the sort of general risk of those activities.
Which is why I never go on a motorbike.
So hang on, I'm going to try and extrapolate this out. So is the concept then that over your lifetime you have 1 million Micromorts to use up?
No, because you're not necessarily going to die a sudden death. It's very much the acute thing. It happens straight away. And so it's really tied to an activity. It happens there on the spot. It's an accidental death, essentially. And why, roughly, it's gone down a bit now, but, roughly 1 a day. You get up in the morning and you go to bed dead. And that happens about 1 in a million people, per day, of unexpected deaths from one reason or another. Some of them might be self-induced, of course, or whatever, if you're drug taking or something like that. But that's the sort of, it's almost, your daily quotient. Now it's higher for young people or older people because they're more at risk, etc. But on average, that's our daily dose, is 1 Micromort a day. So if you're going to do, a scuba dive or a skydive, they're all about between 5 and 10 Micromorts. You're using up around a week's worth of background risk by doing this activity, which is, I'd done a skydive because I thought, that's fair enough, especially when you're old, bring it on, let's have a go. But, some things like base jumping or, jumping off a mountain in a wingsuit or something like that, you're using hundreds of these things up all the time. You may get away with it, but it's like you've got more chance of winning the lottery if you buy lots of tickets, and this is a lottery you don't want to win.
Yes. Just to remind our listeners again, this is all based on data.
Oh, yes, it's all based on data.
Yeah.
That's why it's such an average. It's got a historical thing. And so you look at how many people have died skydiving, how many people have died in cars, or whatever, and how many people die on motorbikes. And, it really is about 6-7 miles for a Micromort on a motorbike, extraordinarily dangerous. And it is.
Yeah, it is.
I think perhaps one of the highest figures you quoted was summiting Everest.
Yeah.
Which was thousands.
Well, the other one I worked out was going on a raid in bombing in World War II.
Oh, yeah.
20,000 Micromorts.
Yeah, gosh.
And, the chance of coming back was an enormous amount. But then, if you're sick and you're getting cardiac surgery, that used to be a 2% mortality. So it's 2 out of oh God, I could do some sums now. 2 out of 100. If you did it by 1 million, that's 10,000. That's 20,000. So it's gone down a bit now, but roughly speaking, going on a bombing raid in World War II is like having open heart surgery every time you went over Germany.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh.
That was the risk you were taking. So the chance of you surviving your 25, missions or whatever was low.
Very low.
I learned about Micromorts from you some time ago, but it existed for quite some time. Is this something that people still use?
No, they don't really. I like it. Maybe, it's got a name that sounds a bit funny. I mean, that's why I think Ron Howard invented it at Stanford. He was making a bit of a joke about it. I think it's really serious, and I think it's actually a rather good unit to bring everything down to whole numbers rather than talking 1 in a million, 3 in a million.
Yes.
I mean, who can understand that? But if you can make a comparison between motorbikes, skydiving, bombing raids and stuff like that, or having a general anaesthetic is about 1 in 100,000. That's 10 micromorts to have a general anaesthetic. It's roughly the same as a skydive or a scuba dive. So, you start getting a perspective on what these things mean. And running a marathon is about 7 micromorts. The skydiving, the running a marathon, the scuba diving, are all about the same. And you realise there is this natural thing where doing things that do have some risk involved with them, this is the sort of risk that people are willing to take on a fairly regular basis. Much above that becomes so obvious they don't want to do it, or their family doesn't want them to do it. Below that, it's not much fun. So there is a sort of natural level between 5 and 10 micromorts in terms of an activity that people are willing to undertake voluntarily. Above that, it starts being generally, unless you're a base jumper, pretty involuntary, like a bombing raid or open heart surgery.
Yes.
I thought it was quite interesting. You quoted, for example, commercial fishing, I think, of having 3 micromorts a day.
Yeah, 3 micromorts a day. It's 1,000 a year. Because the point is that although they don't use the unit, the idea of a 1 in a million chance of death is used all the time by, for example, the UK Health and Safety Executive.
Oh, yes.
And because they consider a 1 in 1,000 chance per year of being killed at work is an unacceptable risk. And coal mining and commercial fishing regularly have go above this all the time. So 1,000 micromorts a year, that's 1 in 1,000, 3 micromorts a day in commercial fishing and coal mining. And these are the really high risk jobs that people do and have done. But commercial fishing, it doesn't necessarily mean in a big boat. It also can mean in, people just going off in small boats looking at lobster parts, and it's dangerous, and they tend not to, actually look after their safety that well. So it covers all types of accidents, all sizes of, of the boat. That's what's quite interesting, is that the Health and Safety Executive have actually pinned this number, that 1,000 micromorts a year. Above that is an unacceptable level of risk.
Do insurance companies look at that as well?
Well, they're doing these calculations all the time. I don't know if they wouldn't use the word micromort, but they're using this all the time.
Yeah.
In terms of sudden risks. Now, when they're doing life expectancy, they're looking at chronic risks. When you're buying life insurance,
yes,
don't tend to be thinking so much in terms of accidents. Although that is part of it, they're thinking more in terms of illness and early death. But if you're trying to insure yourself against a risky activity, then they should be doing these sums. And that's why you get these exclusions.
Yes. So if that's the unit of death, should we move on to the unit of life?
Yeah.
The microlife.
Well, as I said, the point about it is that I love this unit of acute death, but I realised that when a lot of people were talking about risks, they're not talking about the car crash, etc. They're talking about lifestyle risks. Being a slob in front of the television, not exercising, smoking, drinking too much, etc., eating badly, all those things. And there wasn't an equivalent neat unit of risk. The natural statistical measure is what's called a relative risk so for example, smoking 20 cigarettes a day doubles your annual chance of death. And that corresponds roughly to an 8 to 10 year reduction in life expectancy. So you don't know, you may live there's always some people who are going to live a long time, but on average, it'll take 8 to 10 years off your life. Smaller things, I don't know, sitting in front of the television for a few hours a day or something, you've got relative risk looks about 1.1, so about 10% increase in risk. And that corresponds to a year off your life expectancy, about 2 hours of television watching a day. That's sedentary behavior. So you realize that a year, I've got to try to get the sums right, a year off your life expectancy, when for an adult, where you've got maybe 50 years to live, is like having a 50th of your life. And in fact, it turns out that 50 years is 1.5 million hours, roughly. So as an adult, you've got 1.5 million hours to live. About 50 a day. And there's 1.5 million hours in your life, adult life, so I called it a microlife, is something which, as a habit, would on average lead to you losing the equivalent of half an hour a day. So it's easy to do. It's 2 cigarettes, it's a bacon sandwich, it's sitting in front of the television for 2 hours. All of these lose you half an hour a day. And the cumulative, you can add them up. So, if you do all of those, you sit in front of the television smoking, eating your pizza, drinking away and watching things stuff. That's a few hours off your life. Longer than you're spending in front of the television. Yeah.
I'm wondering though, you could probably easily rack up over 24 hours on an absolute bender.
You're on a bender. You could get less than 24. Yeah. So, but it's the habit. I mean, if you did that all the time, you wouldn't live very long at all.
Sure.
So that actually does make sense if you're really knocking them up like that. And this never caught on. But But,
I like it.
I like it. And every so often somebody says, oh, smoking a cigarette is like 15 minutes off your life. And now recently someone said 11 minutes off your life. It's about 15 or something like that. So if you add up, if you smoke 20 a day, it's 5 hours off your life. It encourages you, if you're going to eat a bacon sandwich, eating it slowly. Yeah. And the other thing is about exercise, of course. You can gain microlives. So if you exercise the first 20 minutes, if you're a bit of a slob, but you get moved to 20 minutes a day, really gains you quite a lot of microlives. But after a while, for half an hour's exercise, you gain half an hour of life expectancy, 1 microlife, which means it's like time stays still while you're exercising.
This is great.
The times that you are not aging while you're exercising. I really like that idea. If you, as long as you're already moving around a bit, the extra half hour, and after if you exercise a lot, it stops. And in fact, the curve might be U-shaped. You're actually damaging yourself.
Yes.
I like the idea that by exercising, you're stopping time.
It's like bonus time. Free time.
Without consciously knowing it, I probably live my life this way, David. Because I do like my exercise, but I do also like eating bacon sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. I do the trade-offs. I do the trade-offs all the time. So I try to be as fit and active as possible. At the same time, I'm not going to stop drinking wine.
Of course. Yeah. And nobody should ask you to.
Exactly.
I mean, the advice always changes about that. But I do remember at the time, I think you said that, sometimes having 1 drink a day was actually okay for you. So that was a positive thing. But if you have 2, then you start.
I still think there's a lot of argument about it, but I think the evidence is still that the first drink each day is medicinal, is actually beneficial to you. There may be a small increase in cancer risk, but there's a reduction in risk of cardiac risk and so. Yeah. But then it dips out. And by the time you get to the 2 drinks a day is the sort of UK guidelines. By the time you get to that, you're about evens.
Yeah, okay.
And then it starts going up, 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 up. So what I always say is that the first one's medicine, and then it's poison, 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 poison. It doesn't go medicine, poison, medicine, poison.
Sadly. That you might take the trade-off of life expectancy when if it was quite clear. It's like, well, I'm going to have this. I use up 30 minutes of my life in the future, but that's worth it over 60 years of
again.
Life
it's purely nominal value. You can't see it, you can't measure it at all. What effects it's having. But I find again as a way of comparing activities, so that you stop people making a huge fuss about something that actually makes almost no difference at all. I mean, the point about you do all this, and you end up with exactly the same stuff: that you shouldn't drink too much, you shouldn't smoke at all, you should get up off your backside as much as you can, and you should eat a decent balanced diet. And that's all it comes to. So after all this analysis and statistical work, you end up with, advice that people have been giving for decades.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun to do that, isn't it? And to break it down.
One of the things that I really liked, and I have quoted a number of times, although I'm not quite sure where I read it first, was that having a cup of coffee would actually give you microlives.
Oh, yes, yeah. No, coffee is beneficial. There's, people have made a big fuss about the possibility of cancer risk from coffee, but on the whole, coffee is beneficial. Yeah. The evidence is pretty strong about that.
I've definitely been in the office kitchen quoting microlives to my colleagues.
There's always a limit to this, of course. Yeah.
And David, we talked quite a bit about the medical application of data here, and you've spent quite a lot of your career applying the analysis of data and statistics in the world of medicine. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that somewhere statistics and data can be really helpful to help us manage our health better? And I mean that individually, but also then as a nation and globally.
Yeah. I mean, medicine has been the main driver for statistics certainly from post-war up until maybe 80s and 90s. There's a massive driver of statistical methods. I mean, it developed before the Second World War by people being very interested in measuring things in data, but it tended to be counting things, counting the number of people with measles, counting this and counting the other, and trying to work out some causes. But then they realized they could take the methods that had been developed pre-war in agricultural science, where in order to test the efficacy of fertilizers and things, you randomly allocated them to different plots around a field. You divided the field up into small plots, and you randomly allocated so as to balance out the different effect, the drainage and the shade and that sort of stuff. And then they realized you could do the same for medicine. So from 1948, they started the first big randomized trials, where people were randomly allocated to treatments. And that's totally revolutionized medicine. That you won't get a medicine on the market now unless it's been subjected to, or a vaccine or anything, a randomized trial where people have been allocated it. Some people get it and some people don't, and nobody knows who's going to get it, and usually nobody knows who got it. In that you try to make a placebo that looks exactly like people are given. So the people who get it don't know what they're getting. The people who are giving it don't know what they're getting. And in some cases, it's what's called triple blind. The people who are analysing the data don't know what A and B is. They know that there's a treatment A, treatment B, and they don't know which is the new one, which is the old one. That's triple blind. So try to prevent unconscious biases coming in by the patients, the doctors, and the statisticians.
Even as a statistician, you might be analysing this data and you're looking at it and you're going, oh, I know this is the one with the new thing and I want it to pass.
Yeah, we've all got unconscious biases. And everyone knows that in statistics that they want to discover something. Yeah. They like to get a significant result or something. So, no, you can't trust statisticians 1 inch. But the interesting thing, what I love I've been on data monitoring committees, and the one people who get the unblinded information are the data monitoring committees. So it's quite extraordinary that, I've done this for huge drug trials, incredibly multi-million-pound trials run by, for example, Pfizer, a drug company. They don't see the data. The data is then seen by the independent data monitoring committee. And I remember then flying to America to tell the board of Pfizer that their drug hadn't worked. They weren't very pleased, but they were quite decent about it, really, having spent millions of pounds on it. Yeah. It's really rigorous science. And even within the pharmaceutical industry, because of the strong regulation, the trials are really well done. I've worked a lot with pharmaceutical industry, and, there may be all sorts of things one might not like about their pricing and about everything like that. But in terms of the science, it's very good.
I think it would be fun to talk a little bit more generally about risk and uncertainty and luck or chance. And again, we're with the right man. Your most recent book, David, The Art of Uncertainty. I mean, uncertainty is an inevitable part of being a human, right? And in a whole manner of different ways.
Absolutely.
Is there an easy way to define uncertainty in our everyday lives?
I stole the definition I use in my book, which is the conscious awareness of ignorance. And that you realise you don't know something. And that might be about the future. You're actually aware, I don't know what's going to happen. And it may be about what's going on at the moment, and it may be what's happened in the past and why it happened. And we're aware. We know so little. There's a little bubble we're vaguely aware of, and even then we might be mistaken. But everything else is a complete mystery. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happened. We certainly don't know what's going to happen in the future. We live in it. We are creatures of uncertainty, and long may it last. Well, it will last, of course, because it's unavoidable. But I think it's a part of being human. Can you imagine being certain about what's going to happen tomorrow? You might as well be in jail.
So almost everything is then our best guess based on our experience and the information that we have.
So it's uncertainty is a relationship between you and the outside world, because you may be uncertain about stuff that other people may know about, but you don't know. It may all be, whatever happens, may all be completely predetermined, predestined. It may all be God's will. Who knows? It doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't have to talk about that kind of stuff, because the crucial thing is that I don't know and you don't know. Yes. So it's a relationship, and you have to live with that relationship and work out how you're going to deal with that. And some people deal with it in very different ways. Some people, it makes some people very anxious. You get some people who are very intolerant of uncertainty and want to know exactly what's going to happen and try to control everything.
Yes.
And you get others who are much bolder and much more willing to deal with uncertainty and risk. But even that's not a single dimensional characteristic. People have found that there's not a single sort of risk. You've got these big 5 personality traits, and you've got neuroticism and extroversion, all that stuff. Risk aversion or proneness is not one of them, because there's not a single trait. Because some people may be very bold. They may jump off. I know people who do very bold physical things. So they may jump off a mountain in a wingsuit, but be really careful with their money and their relationships. So
it's entirely subjective and individual.
It's completely individual. We respond in very different ways. And so, that's why psychologists like Danny Kahneman have realized that, we do have one way of responding to risk or uncertainty, and just from our guts, completely automatic, what he calls thinking fast, that gut feeling. But, as he said, you can think slow as well. You can try to weigh things up and be a bit more balanced about it. And, it's not, as he said, it's not a choice between the two. We're always operating a mixture of these two things.
Yeah.
And we do that individually in our lives, everything we do. But I'm also interested in how corporations do it, how scientists do it, and how policymakers do it. And they, in fact, do the same thing because they've got data, they've got analyses, they've got statistical models, they've got projections and things like that. And yet that's never enough. That's sort of thinking slowly, but it never really covers everything. You need to have a gut feeling as well. You need to have judgment. You need to have intuition. You need to have imagination as well as those. And so from both a personal and an organizational point of view, there's an amazing balance one can do between that, almost an iteration between the gut and the cold, and the analytic capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not one or the other. You have to have both.
You've basically described a relationship with my wife in that, David. I'm very much the slow thinker, data analyze, look at all the review sites before I make a decision. Yeah. She's very much intuition, gut feeling, let's go.
Oh, we've had that because we're both great travellers, but we travelled in totally different ways. In that I would plan everything. I had everything sorted out what we're going to do. And my partner just arrives and say, whoa, this is nice, what should we do? And this led to certain issues on trips and things. Yeah. But essentially, she's won. We now can go to India for a month, and I only have the first night booked. And that's it. After that, we're going to make it up. I got some ideas privately. I got some secret ideas for it. But
yeah, but you can make out that just came to you.
Oh, it just came to me. Just
a moment of inspiration.
But she's so good. Once you get somewhere, she's amazingly imaginative. We could do this. We could get this too. We could do this sort of stuff like that. She's really good. So, we're very similar. And then she criticizes me. I don't know if your wife does this, for being an optimizer, wanting to get everything. Oh, we could do this, and then we could fit this, and then we could do that. And she says, don't do it. This is pointless. And in fact, in the book, I really criticize the aim of optimization. It's really disastrous to try to optimize, because you can only optimize if you actually totally understand the circumstances.
Yes.
Because it's delusional. It's so arrogant to think that I'm not going to be surprised by anything that happens, that everything's going to follow exactly as I think it might. And so therefore my optimal path will work out the best thing to do. No, you can never do it. You can never do an optimal stuff. So you shouldn't try. Well, should try, but have the humility to realize you can't do it. Because, strictly speaking, to make an optimal decision, you have to know all the options. And even that's difficult. You have to know all the possible outcomes that might happen after you've made those decisions. What? You can imagine everything that might happen in the future. Then you've got to give them how valuable, how good they are. And then you've got to give them all probabilities. Wow, for goodness sake. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. And I've taught this stuff for years and now realise that it's completely impractical.
This is so good, David. I've learned so much there, because what I'm realising is my attempts to optimise only ever leads to frustration.
You should obviously not just throw up your arms and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter at all. No, I think you should try to, maximise benefit, realising you won't be able to do it. But what, seems to go down very well when I'm talking to corporations and everything is the idea that, what do you do if you realise you're going to optimise? Well, you have to try to build in resilience. And so rather than being robust, which is a sort of optimizing thing. Yes. Oh, I'm robust to all the things that might happen because I've thought of them. Resilience is to be actually robust to things you never thought of, so that you are in a situation so that you can recover or benefit from things that happen that you are not on your list. What's called deep uncertainty. When you acknowledge, it's the unknown, it's Rumsfeld's unknown unknowns. You acknowledge there are things that might happen that you aren't even on your list of possibilities. And while you can never protect completely against them, and you certainly can't optimize, you can try to build in, and this means always having redundancy, a fallback position, some sort of safety net. And that's why when I talk to kids, I do schools talks, and I always say, yeah, take risk. But don't be reckless. Don't be stupid. Yeah. Protect yourself against the downside. It's like buying insurance or something. Buying insurance, a good insurance policy, is resilience, because you're protecting yourself against things you never even thought might happen. When you read an insurance policy, you think, oh my God, you don't even have to list the things that are going to happen. So buying insurance is the classic issue of resilience, as long as there's a good policy that covers you against a lot of stuff. And that's what I say to kids, take risks, but don't be daft. Don't be daft.
Yeah.
I did a sketch not long ago of the old unknown unknowns.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
So I was looking into it recently, and there was a quote from General Eisenhower. I don't know if you know this one, which is, "In preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable."
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I should use that one. I should steal that one because it's really good to go through the motions of trying to do that. Envisaging possible futures. You kind of think of what kind of stuff could happen if you're really thinking through an issue. And, what are the possibilities and things like that. And you look at, what would be best to do in those circumstances. It won't work.
Yeah.
Plans never go through. The plans never work. Always something will happen. It won't go exactly as you thought or anything like that. But it's really good to have thought it through. And I think the main reason for doing that is to protect yourself against, the real disasters.
Yeah. David, can I ask, you've written many books. I think there's The Art of Statistics, and you wrote one around COVID. I think you wrote one around sex by numbers or something like that.
It's my favourite.
I'm sure there's interesting stories to share about that.
There are.
But maybe we should do some of those. But I was curious what made you want to write this one about uncertainty, the most recent one.
Yeah, because partly Art of Statistics has been very successful, and I wanted to do another. And I've always been interested in probability and uncertainty. I've studied it, for years since I went to university, and the pure maths got too difficult, so I moved into probability and statistics. And I had a really inspirational teacher, so many people, put their enthusiasm down to. And he was working on really, what is probability, and translating a book on that. And the first line of the book is probability doesn't exist. And I don't think probability exists. I think we just made it up. I think it's just a fiction. It's a virtual quantity. It's not out there in the world. There's no probabilityometer. We can't measure it. Not like heat or light or distance or weight or anything like that. So I think it's a great idea, and it's really good to act as if it is there, but it isn't there. I mean, I take a statin because my 10-year risk of a heart attack or stroke is more than 10% or something, so I take a statin. I haven't got a risk of a heart attack. Where is that risk? You can't open me up and find that risk. It's just some nominal figure that's been estimated. And the only way I think it's reasonable to describe it to someone is say, well, out of 100 people like me who ticked the boxes I did, we would expect 10 of them to have a heart attack or a stroke in the next 10 years. Now, that makes sense because it's a purely empirical thing. It's almost testable. It's putting me in a block of people. It's not my risk. It's a proportion of people for who something will happen, and people who tick the boxes I did.
Yep.
And that's the actual meaning of it. And I think it makes sense. And actually, good doctors will explain it like that.
Are there some uncertainties that we enjoy as humans and others that are less enjoyable?
And I got an audience, who likes uncertainty? And nobody puts their hands up and says, so you all want to know what you're going to get for Christmas. So when you've recorded a football game or something, you watched it, you want to know the result straight away. You jump to the end of the Who Done It box set to find out who done it.
You're right. We love it.
Exactly.
In some senses, we love it.
We live with uncertainty. And then the last thing I ask people is, okay, if I could tell you, would you want to know when you're going to die?
Does anybody say yes to that?
About 10% say yes.
Yeah.
And they're the planners. They're the real. They make you look quite lackadaisical. Yeah, exactly. So the ones who want to know when they want to plan, and so. No, we live with uncertainty. We really love uncertainty because it's what introduces all that novelty, all that surprise, all that serendipity, all that lovely part of life is due to uncertainty.
That's a really lovely way of thinking about it. Because you're right, uncertainty, I mean, it has the negative connotation to it, as you say, who likes it?
No, you do. I mean, can you imagine being certain? Knowing exactly what's going to happen tomorrow? God. Ghastly.
It's sometimes quite interesting to see how uncertainty and some statistics are used in the media, sometimes in communications. In the media, in advertising, sometimes in politics. And it can be quite easy to not give the full story and the full picture with the statistics that you use and the probability and uncertainty that you present.
Well, that's because politicians, for example, can't deal with uncertainty. They're incapable of it. They have no language for it. They're not trained. They have to be really sure about everything they're doing.
Well, yeah, they need conviction.
They need conviction. Conviction politics. And it's nonsense. because they're not sure about whether what they're saying will work. They're not sure about what's going to happen. They have to have this conviction. And they feel that they have to, otherwise no one will believe them or take any notice of them. Our research and others has shown this is complete myth, in that if figures in authority admit uncertainty, admit there's two sides to the argument, admit there's winners and losers, balances, positives and negatives, that it actually increases trust in the group who are most skeptical of them. So that when politicians and others have got a simple message, let's keep it simple, bang this message through, they actually make it worse. They're decreasing trust in the group of people they're trying to convince. They're making it worse. It's this myth that the general public out there can't deal with uncertainty, that they won't believe anyone who admits uncertainty. And it's all nonsense. It's not true.
For CEOs and politicians, and how should we be communicating? Maybe it's even as parents to our children, right?
I think I try. You've got to have humility, I think, and even as parents to children, you have humility. I mean, I found parenting quite challenging, but I do think I did used to apologise to my kids and say I screwed up and I shouldn't have told you off or whatever. And I hope I had a degree of humility. At the same time, I think you do have to, kids or anybody else, you can have a conviction about, I've weighed it up, and there's positive, but I really think this is, on balance, the right thing to do.
Yes.
And you can say that, I think. That is the right, and that's leadership, I think. But you don't pretend that's the only thing to do or the obvious thing to do. I think on the balance thing, and it's my judgment, this is the right thing to do, and we're going to go for it. And I think that's trustworthy. To pretend that, I know it's self-evident and the evidence says this is the only thing to do, that's not trustworthy, because it's rarely the case.
Does it frustrate you sometimes that data is used in that way, that it's presented with this certainty? Or
God, you should have heard me in COVID screaming at the television. And in COVID, I did have a chance to say it, because I was on Andrew Marr, then the Sunday morning politics program, the main politics program, in May 2020. I did a real rant about these, government broadcasts each evening, and the politicians would get up and spout a whole lot of statistics were A, wrong, and B, they didn't understand. And I called this number theatre. It was just trying to bombard the public with statistics. It was just number 10 comms operating. I said, I just wish they'd treat the public with respect. The public are hungry for information and knowledge. Treat them with respect, get somebody who actually understands what they're talking about. And this went down really well. I got 1.7 million views on YouTube when it's replayed, and I got on Gogglebox. I mean, really,
Wipeout and
Gogglebox and Desert Island Disc. No, three things. I can just, I have retired, but there's nothing more to achieve in the world as far as I can see.
That's the trio. That's the one you want.
Exactly. Nothing more to achieve. Yeah.
I was going to ask, there was something that caught me. I think it was quite early in the book, which is essentially about how we often talk about uncertainty and chance and risk in words, and politicians might often talk about the most likely thing that's going to happen. And people have quite potentially different meanings around the words they use. And an oblique link here is, I did a sketch a long time ago, not as long as the Microlives and the Micromorts, but on word spectrums, which is things like whisper, talk, shout, yell, scream, and so on. And as I did that one, somebody sent me a really interesting paper, which I wonder if you've seen, which was released by the CIA on words of estimative probability.
Words of estimative probability, WEP. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's absolutely standard. And I've got... hang on. Oh, here it is. I got a mug in front of me. Yeah. This is from JTAC. This is an MI5 mug, and it says, if you're in MI5 and you use the word unlikely, you must mean between 25 and 35% probability. If you use the word highly likely, you must mean between 80 and 90%. So there is an official scale in the UK intelligence services so that the words mean something, because it's all very well in our general life. Of course, we say, that's likely to happen, or I think this might happen. When you're dealing with important decisions, those are useless and can be deeply misleading.
Yes.
So they have a scale, to be used, and CIA's got theirs, and, MI5's got theirs, and they roughly correspond. Although in the book, I talk about, I look at 7 different definitions of likely that are used around the world by different agencies. Yeah. But they're all roughly kind of 55 to 80% or something like that. Yeah. IPCC use it for climate change. It's an extraordinarily valuable thing to do.
I think the example I read was around a military reconnaissance mission, and they were looking at some photos as to whether or not something was an airfield. And so somebody says this is almost certainly an airfield, and then therefore they're going to base real military operations.
That has to be more than 95%.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think this was released based on the fact that, somebody didn't actually mean that, and they went and did something and it was wrong,
Yeah, the example I use in the book is the Bay of Pigs in 1961, where Kennedy found out about the planned invasion by the CIA of Castro's Cuba, and he sent the Joint Chiefs of Staff to do a report on this, and they thought it was a pretty daft idea, and they assessed only a 30% chance of success or 70% chance of failure. But by the time it got to Kennedy, the numbers had gone and been replaced by the phrase, a fair chance of success. What? And Kennedy approved the invasion as a total disaster. No, it probably wasn't only due to that report, but afterwards, the Joint Chiefs of Staff were so fed up that they hadn't made it clearer that they thought this is a really bad idea. So you'd have to call that unlikely.
An unlikely chance of success.
30% chance of success. In the modern UK intelligence services, you have to say it's unlikely to succeed. But they didn't say that. So that's used as an example of the real dangers of using words, because words mean different things to different people.
Absolutely. David, John and I are both massive sports fans.
Oh, I'm not.
Are you not?
I couldn't care less.
Did you not do some work around football results?
Oh, yes, yeah. And I'm fascinated in sports betting and football results. I'm producing good odds. Oh, no, I'm fascinated by that. My predecessor, professor at the University of Cambridge, left to join a sports betting company. So statisticians are up to their eyeballs in sports betting. Yeah.
So what are some of the interesting bits of data and uncertainty around sports? And I think, was it football?
Yeah, I did football. And I was using a model that was published, a fairly basic model that was really quite effective and people were making money out of. And then they left academia, the people who developed model, to form the sports betting company after that, because nothing was published anymore, because the models got more and more sophisticated. But the one that was published and one I was using is just based on goals scored during the season and how many, for if you've got two teams against it, you talk about one having an attack advantage if they're above average goals they've scored, and a defence weakness if it's below average goals they've let in. And so and you can combine these with the two teams playing, and from that you can get an estimate of the expected number of goals that each team will score. And then if you apply a Poisson distribution, because goals scored actually do follow very accurately, remarkably accurately, a Poisson distribution, you can get a joint distribution of all the different goal combinations. So you never say who's going to win, but you can produce a probability of every single score, 2-1, 3-1, 4, comes out of the model. And so you can use that to compare with the odds being offered by bookies and seeing if you can, get an advantage over them. And, it works, except now because the bookies are using even better models. So it's got much more difficult to beat the bookies because they've caught on and they've got good analytics teams behind them, which they didn't used to have.
I'm going back to Rain Man, thinking counting cards.
Yeah.
I think I read in your book somewhere there was a statistician who was also a magician and managed to teach himself how to flip a coin such that it would always be.
Yeah, Percy Diaconis. So he was a travelling magician. And he taught himself he can shuffle a pack of cards and, you can do all sorts of things. You can flip a coin and make it come up heads every time. He then became professor of probability at Stanford, an absolutely world-leading probabilist. But he then spent his time doing tricks, revealing cons, the way that scams, the way that people, he knew he was a professional magician, so he could see through what everyone could do. But he could do the coin flip, and also he could do exact riffle shuffles, so he could take a pack of cards and do 8 riffle shuffles, and they'd end up back in exactly the same order they started in. But he also did the maths of shuffling, which says that if you're doing a good shuffle, you only have to do it 7 times, and it's essentially random.
From the pack in order?
From a pack in order, yeah.
Cool, there you go.
The thing I got in the book is about, do you know this thing about the number of shuffles?
No, go on.
Well, I haven't got my pack of cards with me. If I shuffle a pack of cards, what I do is open it up and I say nobody in the entire history of humanity has ever done this shuffle before. I can't be logically sure, but I'm as sure as I am of anything that no one's done that shuffle before. And you shuffle the pack of cards again, open them and say, nobody has ever done this shuffle before. I'm absolutely confident about that. So that every shuffle that's ever been done in the history of card playing is unique, unrepeated. You can be really, really sure of that.
That's amazing.
Every shuffle is unique. It's like we are all unique. Every shuffle is unique. I mean, the only way to show that is the fact that the number of shuffles, which is 52 times, because you've got choice of 52 for the first card.
Yeah.
So it's 52 times 51 times 52. So what's known as 52 factorial. 52
Yeah.
is an enormous number. It's got 69 digits in it, which is more than the number of atoms in our galaxy. Is the number of possible shuffles.
Just from a standard
single pack of cards.
52 cards.
52 cards. There's never been any repeats in the shuffles. And we can be really confident about that.
That's a very, very fun little bit.
The thing I learned recently, you want to demonstrate how many shuffles there are. So you say, okay, I'm going to do one shuffle a second. Okay, how long is it going to take me to work through all the shuffles? And you say, okay, I'm going to wait 1 billion years and then take a step. And then wait another 1 billion years and then take another step. And I'm going to walk all the way around the world. And when I get to walked all the way around the world, I take one drop from the Pacific Ocean. And then I do the whole thing again. 1 billion years, another drop. So I wait till the Pacific Ocean is empty. And then I put a piece of paper on the ground. Then I start again. 1 billion years, drop, another piece of paper. I wait till the piece of paper reaches the sun. And then I repeat the whole thing 1,000 times. And then I've counted all the shuffles.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't it a wonderful image? It's such a lovely, ridiculous image of a length, an eon, how long a period is.
Huge number.
Yeah.
That is great.
Of a huge number, yeah.
From a simple pack of cards.
From one pack of cards, yeah. So it's nice to do it in practice. I always carry a pack of cards, I shuffle it, show it to people and say, no one's ever done that before.
Yeah, that's great.
David, I was wondering if I could ask, there's so many intriguing examples of where uncertainty matters and how you try and put numbers on these things. But there's also lots of examples of where perhaps our intuition doesn't serve us wrong or where we would typically make mistakes. And so I was wondering, when you think about it, some of the most common ways that people go wrong or like our intuition lets us down around uncertainty.
Well, I'm terrible. My intuition rate probability is terrible. I have to do everything quietly. I sit down. I wouldn't trust my intuition at all. The card one is how surprisingly rare things are, which we think might be quite common. Okay, we got the same shuffle. No, you won't have got the same shuffle. So that's one example where our intuition is bad. But our intuition is also bad the other way, is that some things happen far more often than we think they would. And our intuition is really poor on that.
Okay.
Well, there's a standard birthday thing that if you just take 23 people, there's a 50% chance that 2 of them have got the same birthday. So that means that on a football pitch, there's 23 people. There are 2 teams and the referee. So in half of all football matches, there's 2 people on the pitch with the same birthday. And it's true. It works out. Every so often people do it. And in squads, World Cup squads have got 23 people in them. So in half of World Cup squads, there's 2 people with the same birthday. And again, it works every time. It's just true. So that's quite surprising. The other quite nice one is playing with your kids. Okay, you got kids. You're sitting in the car, bored, saying, okay, let's next 20 cars that come past us, look at the last 2 numbers on their number plate.
Okay.
And if there's a match, could be anyone from 00 to 99, 100 numbers. If it's a match, then they don't get their pocket money. And there's an 87% chance there'll be a match just in 20 cars. Yeah.
My intuition on that is way
You'll
off.
win 7/8 of the time they don't get their pocket money. Same thing works if you've got 20 people and you say, okay, look at the last 2 digits in your phone number, bet them that 2 of them have got the same last 2 digits, and you'll win 87% chance of the time. So that's quite unintuitive, the fact that when there's lots of possible combinations, things match much more often than you can make money out of that. Only once.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So apart from depriving our kids of pocket money and taking money off our friends, are there useful ways that just your average Joe, me and Jono Hey, could use uncertainty to help us out in life?
Well, we are experts in uncertainty. We make judgments. Every time we go out to the door, across the road, or do anything to judge when to get a bus or something, we're judging it all the time. We're really quite good at it as sort of animal instincts. I think we can sometimes be a bit cautious. But we're actually not bad at all. If you're gambling, obviously you have to think about it much more carefully. And so anything to do with money, particularly if someone's trying to get money off you, things like, you go and buy some white goods. Oh, we could give you this 5-year insurance and it's like half the price of the product. Well, absolute nonsense. It's just absolute rubbish. That's kind of thing. where you realise that this is ridiculous, that the chance of it breaking down, that time, you just buy a new one. If it does, you're just being ripped off. That's the way in which one can be conned, I think, is buying excessive insurance.
That's a very good tip.
Never buy the insurance sort of on white goods or electronics or anything like that.
That's a great tip.
You mentioned in your book, I think it's called the gambler's fallacy.
Yeah.
Can you say a quick word about that? Because I think that's a good one to guard against, because it is one where it's quite...
if you've got what is a genuine random process, it has to be a random process, coin flips or numbers coming up in lottery, and you think, oh, well, number 3 hasn't come up for a while, it must be due. And you still go on lottery websites, you'll still go, oh, this number hasn't been, this is a hot number, it's becoming, this number hasn't come up for a while, it must be due. And think, what? What nonsense. How do these little balls bouncing around know what happened in the last previous? It's complete nonsense. And what they're doing is misunderstanding this idea that in the end, the numbers do balance out roughly. The proportions do balance out if you run long enough. But it's not because there's some method of compensation. It's just that imbalances get swamped. That's all it is. There's nothing that says, oh, number 3 hasn't come up for a while, therefore it had better come up to even things up. It's just that as you get more and more and more, it all just balances out.
So, Rob, from your expression, I guess for me, some of the examples would be like if you were rolling a dice and you wanted a 6, but you hadn't had a 6
for 10 goes.
It must be due.
It must be due.
No, nonsense. But of course, there is some intuition that says it isn't due, because you might start suspecting that it's balanced, in which case the most sensible thing is to go the other way and say, well, it probably won't happen then, because I don't believe the dice.
Somebody's giving you a dodgy die.
So the most sensible thing is always to go the other way, not to think it's due. It's actually less likely to happen.
As a kid, I thought I'd nailed it with dice games.
Right.
It was cheating.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it that way, you just spin it
exactly.
on its axis.
That's why I always carry a 2-tailed coin. And I got a 2-headed coin as well, so I have one in each pocket. And so I can win any toss that you want. And so, that's as a warning to, when people say, oh, it's a 50-50 chance of flipping a coin, I think, no, it's not, because it's the 2-headed coin. So that 50-50, it's an assumption. It's trusting me. Don't trust me. Yeah. Oh, no, always carry a 2-headed coin with you. It's very useful indeed. Yeah.
And the 2-tailed coin, just for when they get suspicious.
I gave a talk at the Bank of England and pulled my 2-tailed coin and then said, this is probably illegal, isn't it?
Oh, amazing. Jono, before we close off, are there any other burning questions you want to ask David that we haven't got around to yet?
I have a million questions, but they're not burning. But I will say, in case David doesn't, I have been reading the book, the latest one, and there are so many interesting things that we've talked about. Some of them tonight. We've a million other brilliant stories I thought you were going to bring up, but we haven't. There's a whole chapter on luck.
Oh, yes. Oh, it could go on about luck for ages.
Exactly. A chapter on coincidences, fun coincidences.
Yeah,
so it just goes on. There's so much fascinating stuff in it, and also ways to help you look at statistics that are presented to you.
Well, I mean, that's why I wrote the book. In fact, I put in all the stuff I've been interested in for years and years and years. Who could miss the opportunity to write about a chapter on luck and some on coincidences? So,
and these things affect us every single day of our lives.
Yeah. We just think, I've been lucky, or I feel lucky. And think,
let's just drill down into that a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So deconstructing luck is a really interesting mission.
It only remains for me to thank you once again for giving up your time and your expertise so generously.
Excellent.
Thank you
really
so much.
Really good fun. Lovely opportunity.
And I know there's so much that we talked about that will be of use to our listeners, and I know very intriguing as well. Absolute pleasure, David. Thank you.
No, really fun. Thank you so much.
And for anyone who is keen to delve further into David's mind, David's world, you could do a lot worse than to get buried in his latest book, The Art of Uncertainty: How to Navigate Chance, Ignorance, Risk and Luck. And I will include a link to it in the show notes. And so to close out, I have just one final thought. Carlsberg don't do statisticians, but if they did... Thank you for listening. Go well and stay well.
Nice.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
All music on this podcast series is provided by the very talented Frank Cinelli. And you can find many more tracks at frankcinelli.com.